Hey guys, this is JD Moonen here. I'm coming at you guys with a PvP for Dummies. This video is basically just going to be kind of going over a couple of basic things for new players that are just now getting into PvP and ESO. Basically, right now what we're dealing with here is I have been, I play a lot in NoCP, CP, and I do some BGs. And what I was noticing was we have a lot of, I want to assume they're newer players that don't have a heal in their bar. They're running nothing but damage on both bars. Their builds, I have no idea what they're running. Things like that. And I kind of want to just go over some basics with you to kind of give you guys a standard of where you need to be starting off at when you're just now getting into PvP. PvP is a much different ball game than PvE. I've noticed that a lot of you guys are so used to having a healer that you don't know what self-sustaining is at all. So I basically want to go into a little video on explaining to you guys that we need to get that changed, so that way you guys can have some better, opportunities in PvP, or even be able to stand up on your own in certain scenarios. Another thing is I do notice that a lot of you guys, you run away from fights. I noticed that, some guys, they'll start a fight with somebody that obviously, they're biting off more than they can chew, and then they'll just start running away. Look, guys, let me tell you something. If you're going to start a fight, be in the fight. If you die, who cares? So what? You died. We all die in PvP, okay? So just get over that aspect. Like, quit worrying about, oh, I can't die. Like, nobody gives a shit, okay? Everyone dies. Second thing, I noticed that a lot of you guys are so used to having a healer that you don't know what a self-heal is. You need to have a self-heal on your bar, okay? If you don't have a self-heal, you're going to get packed up every time. Let's say if you're in a 10-man group and you come across my 4-man group and you guys have a healer in your group, right? But you don't have a self-heal on your bar. Well, the second that you guys come and engage on us, we're going to take your healer out. That's going to be the first person that's going, okay? So once the healer goes down, what are you going to do? Okay, you need to be more self-sustainable. I would definitely suggest getting off the Nightblade crutch, because all you're going to do is get packed up on that class anyways, especially now that all the nerfs are coming for them. So I would just try and avoid that class altogether if I were you guys. Now, I kind of want to dive into what is to be expected for your bar setup, guys. You need to have specific things on your bars, and they need to be set up kind of in a general area or a general certain way. As well as we're going to go over what kind of stats you need to expect on your setup, mainly health-wise, what to avoid and things of that nature, okay? So let's go ahead and kind of dive in here. This is going to be PvP, for dummies, for all you new PvPers out there. Sit down with Sensei JD. Here we go. All right, so first off, we're going to start with the bar setups, okay? So for the bar setups, kind of what you need, they need to look something similar to this. Obviously, if you're playing a different class, it's going to look differently than what I have right here on my bars here. But you need to definitely have, your main bar is going to be a damage bar, okay? This is going to be focused on doing damage, okay? Some builds, some setups, going to be a little bit different. You'll have maybe a little bit of damage on the back bar with, a heal or a buff on the front bar, depending on if you're running weapons, and if the particular weapon that you're using you're dealing damage with, or if it's a buff weapon. These things do matter. Back bar, it needs to look very similar to this. You're going to need your buffs on the back bar, as well as, whether it's a support alt, whether it's a alt for fighting a big group outnumbered, a defensive ultimate like sword and board alt, or whatever the case may be. Your back bar is going to be your defensive alt, your support alt, or your, alt bomb alt, that you're using to bomb a big group. Front bar, you want to have your burst, your burst ultimate, the ultimate that you're going to be dropping on somebody to secure that kill. That's going to be what's going to be focused on the front bar, as well as trying to put out the most damage that you can on the front bar. Once again, front bar is the main bar, damage bar. Back bar, buff bar. It's going to have your heal, your buffs, your utility skills. All those things need to be on one bar. and then all your damage on the other bar. This is not PvE, so you're not running damage on both bars with one buff and no heal and none of that bullshit, okay? You need to have buffs and heals on the back bar, and then damage and whatever, you know, if you run a damage buff on the front bar, that's fine. But that's kind of the general setup for your bars. Now let's move on to what to kind of expect when you're looking at stats. Having a decent max stat pool is going to be important, because max stat is going to not only give you sustain, but it's also going to give you damage. So you need to think about that when you're making a build, you know, speccing way into spell damage or weapon damage, you know, too much into that aspect. You're going to be lacking on the max magicka or the max stamina department, and so then you're going to be lacking pretty good amount of damage there. Now, when you're looking at health, I know right now I'm in PvE land, so you're not seeing the Battle Spirit buff, which is going to give you right around 4,000 to 5,000 health. Guys, do not be under 2,000 health. Okay, if you're under 2,000 health in PvP or 20,000 health in PvP, you're gonna get smacked. Okay, the threshold for PvP is at least 20,000 health, and that's still pushing it. If you're a frontline unit like a DK or you know, some sort of Magplar, hell, even a frontline warden, you know, you need to be sitting at least 20, I'd say between 22 and 26 health to be sitting in a very good spot. Now, if you really want to be tanky and you want to, you know, have some really good survivability, then I would suggest being around 28,000 health. Stamina. If you're on a Magicka tune, guys, do not have less than 13.5k stamina. If you have less than 13.5k stamina in PvP, your ass going to get packed up, because you're only going to be able to break free one time, maybe do one dodge roll, and you're out of stam. Okay? And if you're fighting a DK or somebody that's got decent CC, you're screwed. Okay? So these are things to focus on. You want to make sure you have sustain on your build. You don't want to be specced into way too much damage, and then you cast 3 abilities and you're out of, you know, you're out of juice. So you need to focus on having a well-rounded build for PvP. Dueling's a little bit different. You can stack the damage and, you know, take your opponent out quickly. But as soon as you go up against a heavy armor, you know, kind of sustainy build, you're kind of getting in the department of being fucked again. So things to think about. Now, whenever you're looking at food, you need to make sure that your food is increasing your health, giving you some sort of sustain, or increasing all stats. But every food you use, unless you have a really high max health pool, needs to be giving you health and whatever your major stat is. If it's not, you need to not be using it. That doesn't mean use a max stat, max magicka, and max regen, or max stamina, you know, regen, because then you're going to be lacking health. You need to make sure that, like I said before, you're always going over that 20,000k mark. Okay, that 20,000 health mark. So now let's kind of look at resistances and what to kind of expect. If you're sitting at 13.7 physical resistance, unless you're a DK and you're not buffed up, you need to think about running shields. Now, if you're in medium armor, that's going to be a little bit different, but I would always suggest for at least shooting for 18 to 19,000 resistances across the board, no matter what class you're playing. As stated in previous videos, critical resistance is not quite as important as everybody says. I like to run like 2 pieces with a little bit into my CP. You don't need any more than that. You know, you need to make sure that you're getting good resistances, guys. If you're not getting good resistances, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Stop relying on a healer. The more you rely on a healer, the less skilled you're going to be in PvP. Okay, one of the things I want a lot of you newer players to start focusing on is getting out there and playing by yourself. Okay, go get packed up, bite off more than you can chew, fight players that are better than you. That's the only way you're going to get better. Stop running from a fight, get in there, fight them. If you die, fucking go back and do it again. You know, if you die again, then go back and do it again. Just keep going back. Get packed up. Start learning your class. Start learning how to play your character. Start learning what races you need to be. You know, the things that you need to take into perspective when you're playing your class. Don't just say, oh, you know what, I downed this class too much, I'm never playing it again. No. Okay, well, if that setup didn't work, then start putting on a different one. Start finding out what is going to work. What's going to suit your play style. You know, don't go out there and just look at a YouTube video and say, oh, I'm putting that build on. You need to make sure that whatever YouTube video you're watching of a build, you need to make sure it's a reputable one. It's somebody who's known. It's somebody who knows what they're doing. You don't want to just go out, see this guy's stats, and say, oh, you know what, I'm going to wear that build, because I guarantee you 90% of the time, it's a player that has no idea what they're doing in PvP. I've seen it time and time again. You see these guys putting on 3 Swift, and then the whole time I see them in a fight or a 1vx video that they posted where they're not 1vxing at all, they're just sitting behind a Zerg or a group, heavy attacking with a Resto staff, you know, or a bow. Like, those people you need to avoid, okay? You need to look for the people who've been doing this kind of stuff for years. Look at what they're running, listen to their ideas, listen to what they're telling you about resistances for your class, health for your class, max stat for your class. You know, these things are very important in PvP. In PvE, you're just stacking damage. That's all you're doing. Everything else is being fed to you by some sort of support character in your group. In PvP, you're not always going to have those. You know, especially if you want to go take a resource by yourself, you need to be self-sustainable. Okay? And then also, when you're talking about, you know, different passives, you need to do what you can to work up to these passives as quick as possible, guys. If you don't have these passives yet, as well as at least these two, you're not going to be performing where you need to be performing in PvP. Okay, these two, along with all 3 of these, need to be on your #1 top to-do list when it comes to skills. Also, for all you newer players out there, don't go in there with 2 damage sets. You're going to go out there with no sustain and get packed up. My suggestion for any new player that's just now starting out, make sure you have a sustain set. Shackle Breaker is a very good example. Trainee is another very good example of a really good sustain set that you guys can use to start out, to kind of get in the motions of being self-sustainable. And then that will allow you to run a damage set and kind of, you know, go out there and start jacking around with those kind of realms. I want to touch base on, you know, line of sighting as well. You need to start learning how to line of sight. You need to start learning when you need to get out of a fight and reposition. That doesn't mean run all the way back to the Zerg. I'm talking about reposition to another position in the fight, so that way you can adequately turn around, heal up, and then get back into the fight and kill some people. Okay, so these are things that you need to be thinking about when you're playing in PvP. You know, running away is going to do nothing but get you chased down, and then you're going to still get killed in the long run. Or you're just going to run back into a Zerg, get whoever you're fighting Zerg down, and then that's no fun for anybody, because all you did was light attack them right at that point. So, I mean, these are just things to think about. Basically, this is just a kind of a rough guide on, you know, where to start in PvP. You know, make sure that when you're putting your build together, if you notice that you don't have enough sustain, then make sure to change a Mundus Stone. Go get you the sustain Mundus Stone versus having a damage Mundus Stone. If you have 2 damage sets on, go get the sustain Mundus Stone, and then come back and you know, look at the stats. Make sure everything's good. So anyways, that's kind of just some basic tips on, you know, starting in open world Cyrodiil and what to kind of expect when you're out there. So in the next video, we're going to kind of go over line of sighting and different tactics that you can use in PvP as well as understanding how to dodge roll, when to block, and things like that. That's all coming soon in the upcoming videos. So I hope this was helpful for you guys, and once again, thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned for more, and I will see you guys out there on the battlefield. Once again, thanks for watching.